Hello, my friends. Consumer technology expert Katie Linendell here, and it is my pleasure to introduce another dynamic MetLife TTX Talk. Today, a conversation with Komal Ahmad, moderated by MetLife's Merrilee Matchett. And before I turn it over to Merrilee, a little bit about Komal. Komal founded Copia, a food redistribution and waste reduction technology company. Copia has diverted over 5 million pounds of food from landfills and will feed over 6 million people in need. Her awards and accolades are far too long to list, but just to name a few, rightfully so. Komal has been listed on Forbes 30 Under 30 twice. She has also been named as one of the most powerful women in the world by Entrepreneur magazine. Komal is in conversation now with Merrilee. Merrilee, take it away.
Komal, I'm thrilled to be sitting down to speak with you for this edition of Triangle TTX Talks, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us in today's conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today we'll be discussing topics that are focused on advancing the careers of the next generation of women in STEM, which is a critical issue that we at MetLife remain committed and dedicated to. And given your inspiring and impactful work as tech entrepreneur and humanitarian, I'm keen to hear about what I can only frame as your incredible career journey and your insights on this topic. So if you're ready, why don't we just jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you pivoted from a career in the medical field to technology entrepreneur after being inspired by a conversation you had with a homeless veteran. Can you walk us through how that experience unfolded and how it inspired you to found Copia?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much again for having me here today. My journey began nearly a decade ago. I was walking down Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley. I was a student there at the time, and I encountered a homeless man who was begging for food, which is really common. And something about him compelled me to stop and invite him to join me for lunch. And during lunch, he sat across from me, just scarfing down his food. So he was unbelievably hungry. It wasn't, a ploy for anything else. And in between bites, he shared a story. He said, "My name is John. I just came back from my second tour in Iraq. I've been waiting weeks for my military benefits to kick in. And because they haven't, I haven't eaten in 3 days." Imagine 3 whole days without food. And this really hit home for me. I mean, this is a veteran, someone who had given the most selfless sacrifice for his country, only to come home to face yet another battle, that of hunger. And then adding insult to injury, right across the street, Berkeley's dining hall was throwing away thousands of pounds of perfectly edible food. Growing up, perhaps like some of you in the audience, my dad used to remind me, "Hey Komal, don't throw away your food. People are starving in Pakistan." And the well-intentioned and true, after my lunch with John, I was, forced to see the truth behind those words. And unfortunately, hunger is prevalent, and not just in the poorest nations in the world, but even in places like the Bay Area, where wealth knows no bounds.
Yeah.
Over 1 million people don't know where their next meal is coming from. And meanwhile, 40% of the food that we produce globally is wasted. And this is perfectly edible food. And so, there is this stark reality of where there's excess and excess right across the street from one another.
So from this incredibly impactful experience and conversation through to inspiring you to establish Copia, perhaps you can share with us today about Copia's mission, how it operates, and maybe even share some insights into what you're currently working on, not necessarily limited to the work on Copia.
Right. So I guess, just kind of taking a step out. So resolving the disparity that I saw that day in Berkeley between excess food and access to that food propelled me to take action. So, I started by partnering with UC Berkeley and Cal Dining to create one of the nation's first food recovery organizations on a college campus. And so we collected excess food from our dining halls, our on-campus events, our stadium, our arena, and then redistributed that food to, nearby nonprofits, after-school programs, and, local shelters in need. We then redistributed that food, to these organizations. And this wasn't just leftover, fries or half-eaten chicken fingers. This was like high-quality gourmet food and helping those most in need right in our community. And it was a great start, just hugely inefficient. So this frustration became the inspiration of my next company, which was Copia. And Copia is this technology-enabled logistics company that enables commercial kitchens, businesses, so food businesses, and then businesses with food to quickly and efficiently redistribute any of their excess edible food, to nonprofits in need instantly. And so Copia's technology makes solving hunger and reducing food waste as easy, intelligent, and safe as possible through web and mobile platforms that allow you to request pickups of your excess food, have it matched and delivered in on average 26 minutes or less. And so for the first time ever, we're using technology that you and I have to minimize food waste, reach zero waste goals, and feed hungry mouths, while also exponentially reducing carbon emissions. So, all in real time. So think of us as like the Uber for excess food, the black SUV edition. And so that's Copia. And, the focus was, first solving for food waste and hunger eradication in America, and then, eventually across the world. As I think about what comes next, my personal mission is still to solve the world's dumbest problem. I'm now using everything I learned over the past decade of building bare abundance in college, feeding forward, after college, and now Copia, to revolutionize how we redistribute surplus resources like medical supplies, technology, books, clothing, and other items. Because just like excess food, it is not a lack of resources. That's the issue. It's just an ineffective distribution of these resources. We have more than enough for everyone. My goal is to create the world's most intelligent and effective platform for redistributing surplus resources. Something that fits squarely within the mission of UN SDG goals of addressing the world's most pressing challenges and creating a more sustainable future.
And it's great with all the work to create Copia and how that's feeding into that larger vision that you just talked to going forward. And it's very, very cool that Copia is one of the top 3 startups run by women in the United States. And I'm interested to know, what are some of your biggest takeaways in cultivating such a successful startup?
Yeah, well, first, I think, just to be clear, I wasn't trying to start a startup. I wanted to just solve a problem that I saw. And I thought that this problem was just so absurd. Why was anyone tolerating it? Why hadn't it been solved already? Why did it exist? I was still pursuing medicine at the time. I was pursuing my brown girl dream, with the dream that my parents had laid out for me, the thing that most South Asians, do at that time. So I'm not like that typical Silicon Valley bro that was like, oh, I'm gonna go start a startup. That wasn't it. I just wanted to solve a problem. And then the more I got into the problem, the more I realized that I could do something about it. It's not that I was uniquely positioned or uniquely skilled. It was that I became just hungry to solve it. And so what made it successful was, one was talking to users, really understanding what it is that they needed. I think it's important to not build in silos and not build what you think that they need, but build what actually they want, and try to not overcomplicate a product. First start with creating an MVP, so a minimum viable product. Like just create whatever the basic product is, and to launch fast. They say if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you launch too slowly. So, just get it out there, get the user feedback, and then iterate from there. And so also, when once you launch, you need to also ask questions that are more than just like, what do you think about the product and what would you change about it? But ask questions like, what can we do to surprise and amaze you? What could we do that would make you tell everyone about this product? Just get everyone also involved in the process. We have things that would make people like food waste warriors, or there's just different ways to build engagement into the product. And again, just building in feedback loops. There's also ways, in our process that we brought people, we made them food heroes. We would also bring them on journeys where they got to see where their food donations went. So we, brought food donors or chefs or frontline kitchen staff to the nonprofits themselves. So they saw that it didn't just go into this black box and we're not just selling it on a street corner, but it actually went to serve their local community. The other was making sure that you have the right team around you. You're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so you have to be really, really careful about which 5 people that is. So that's one part. That's just a life lesson. But then the other part is making sure that you have people around you that believe what you believe, that share your values. The next thing is, solving the world's dumbest problem requires the world's smartest people. And that means hiring and retaining the right talent. Surrounding yourself with skilled, passionate individuals who share the company's values, can drive growth and innovation. And so when you mess this up, it can inevitably muck up the company big time. So continue to invest in your culture. This is key. They say culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this is true. And this is true especially in the tough times. Culture will carry you forward. It's your team that you turn to, that you lean on.
And that's great advice in terms of you went out to start a company, you had a problem that you wanted to solve, that you're incredibly passionate about, and what you've learned along the way in doing that incredibly successfully, which I guess naturally takes us to the next step, which was, what were some of the challenges that you encountered getting Copia off the ground, and also what's been your proudest milestone out of many that you've achieved through that journey?
Yeah, so there's so many challenges at the beginning today. So at the beginning, it was, whether or not to be a nonprofit or a for-profit company. And if you think about it, if I had even started and I had tried to think about the business model, I probably wouldn't have started. And so, I just wanted to solve a problem. And so I think that sometimes if you get too caught up in how are we gonna make a business from this, you may not get started. Like I'm not sure if the founders of Twitter or Facebook or so many of the companies would have known right off the bat how they were going to make money, um, or Pinterest, right? It was just more important to just see, does this idea even work? So that's one. Two, I was so young. I was so green. I was, what, 20 years old when I started this. I was still a student in college. So getting people to take me seriously, given my age, given my gender, given the fact that I was a solo founder, an immigrant founder, I'm a very uncommon breed, especially in Silicon Valley. So, so yeah, those are
Right,
both some of the challenges and
great.
opportunities. So some of my proudest achievements at Copia are, the food recovery we did from the Super Bowl, where we fed over 23,000 people in one weekend. We were 14 tons of food, and 14 tons is four 16-foot refrigerated trucks filled from top to bottom. We provided food for, those who suffered from the California wildfires, the worst wildfires to hit in California history. We did food recovery for the Academy Awards, for the Oscars. I've been invited to speak multiple times at the United Nations to talk about how we have built a scalable solution to solve hunger both across America and then, eventually across the world. Of course, when we hit 1 million people fed, that was one of my, proudest moments. And now we're tracking to feed over 7 million people fed, which is, just incredible.
And I think the success doesn't come without bumps in the road.
Oh my
Can you
God.
talk about the importance of overcoming the no's that we all inevitably face in our career journeys?
It takes effort to change the world. Everyone will say no to you because yes requires action. So get ready for a lifetime of hearing no's. All you need is one yes. And you may need to make that yes happen for yourself. So every successful person you can think of has had their fair share of setbacks, disappointments and failures. But what sets them apart is how they respond to those failures. They didn't give up. They didn't lose hope, at least for not too long. And they didn't stop trying. Instead, they used these failures as stepping stones to success.
And there's so many big things there where we could go. I love the get ready for a raft of no's, but all you need is one yes. And it's
Yeah.
really underpinned by this theme of resiliency in terms of no doesn't mean never, as you said, and success doesn't suggest an absence of failure. And it takes us to a concept that you've talked about a lot around the unreasonable woman. And you've shared that progress made in solving global issues depends on the unreasonable woman. Can you talk a little bit more about what this means and how you've seen that philosophy come to life?
Yes, absolutely. So this quote is attributed to George Bernard Shaw, and I've adopted it as a woman myself. So it says the reasonable woman adapts herself to the world. The unreasonable woman persists in trying to adapt the world to herself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable woman. It highlights the importance of individuals who challenge the status quo, and they question the established norms, and they refuse to accept things as they are. And of course, this concept can be applied to anyone, regardless of gender, who, possess the qualities of determination, creativity, and the willingness, to challenge conventional wisdom. And, it is someone who doesn't accept the limitations or constraints that might be considered normal or acceptable by society. When it comes to me, it's like, how is it in a world that with so much excess food, so many people go hungry? An unreasonable person is also a champion for change. They're the ones that are addressing injustices in the world. Um, you know, Many global issues stem from systemic injustice. So unreasonable individuals are catalysts for change. They are the ones who are at the forefront of addressing these injustices. They are the ones who are advocating for equality, for human rights, for social change. They are the ones who have a bold vision for the future. They are the ones who aren't afraid to dream big and to pursue unconventional solutions that might initially seem impossible, or that others have said, oh my gosh, that's totally impossible. Like solving hunger, it just can't be done.
And look, we've covered a lot of ground. And to conclude our discussion, what's one parting thought you'd like to leave our audience with, particularly the young women out there who are perhaps either curious or maybe already passionate about STEM or tech entrepreneurship?
The urgency of today requires leaders, not necessarily by rank or title, but who are unstoppable, unfazed. Leaders who refuse to leave life to the status quo because they know that if change is going to happen, it's up to them. So many people on my journey have said, come on, Komal, eradicating hunger, reducing food waste, building a for-profit, for-good business that's going to do this at scale. All of this is impossible. To which I now respond with the words of the late and great Muhammad Ali, that impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who prefer to live in a world as it is instead of using the power they have to challenge it, to change it, to improve it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. The impossible does not exist, and it can no longer exist. We can't tolerate a world where we waste 3 times more food than there are hungry mouths to feed. So being here today with everything that is going on in the world is a blessing, and it's a great privilege. And with that comes an immense responsibility to do more, be more, and achieve more. So the path to the unachievable may be long and uncertain and not that glamorous, but it starts with taking these simple steps together. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. The future of our companies, our country, and our planet depend on our ability to tackle problems with resilience, determination, and compassion. So when history looks back on us, where will they find you? On the sideline or calling the shots? So I ask you to make your mark not on history, but on the future. I urge you all to redefine the impossible, to break the limits that even you have set for yourself. Let's use our potential, our talent, our abilities to move humanitarianism forward. One woman with a simple idea can make a world of a difference, but a group of people banded together can rid the world of an unnecessary, solvable problem. The world's dumbest problem. Thank you.
And Komal, you've shared so much, and I know people will want more. Where can people go to learn more about your work?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, at Komal Ahmad 786. And if they want to, go to learn more about Copia, they can go to www.gocopia.com.
Great. So Komal, thank you so much for speaking with us today and sharing
Thank you so much for having me.
Your very unique perspective to help inspire the next generation of women in STEM. And it's our hope that through powerful stories just like yours, that the women and girls listening to this conversation feel empowered to take that leap into the STEM field and ultimately, as you say, and as you illustrate so well, change the world. So thank you all for being with us in this discussion, and we look forward to seeing you again for our next TTX talk soon.
Thank you, Komal and Merrilee, for your time today, and make sure to visit MetLife's YouTube channel for more dynamic TTX Talks. Stay tuned.